Ingrid, if you can hear me, I think you're the only person whoever has control is to allow people to pop on with their cameras.
Oh, I wonder how I do that.
I have no idea, but I just tried to start it and it's telling me that the host has stopped it.
Start clicking.
Maybe Sarah has done that because she mentioned before I started that she had done something. So maybe she can help us with that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I will take a look at it. I didn't change any settings, but I'll see if I can look into it.
Oh, yay. Mitchell was able to join us. This is great.
Good.
Feels a little weird to be the only one with the camera on.
I was going to say, it's like, it does establish sort of like a, whatever there, right?
Not intentional at all. So with that, yeah, I don't know exactly on my end. Jonathan, did you ever run across this where you had a setting where you were the only one that could have your camera on?
No.
Yeah.
Carl, can you try again?
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Ah,
Yay. Hello all.
hi.
Hey. Perfect. I guess I'll just start it off since we're a couple minutes behind and just welcome everyone to this special council meeting on April 24th of 2023. Ryan, do you want to take roll?
Yes, Mayor Wusso.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Dame,
Present.
Councilor Godis,
Present.
Councilor Schachter,
Here.
Councilor Zelensky, and Councilor Weimer.
Okay, we have quorum. I think that Councilor Zelensky was anticipating joining us though. So we may be on the lookout for her. We'll have her join and we'll acknowledge when she does.
Madam Mayor, I believe she is stuck over in attendees if somebody can bring
perfect.
her up.
Thanks, you guys.
It looks like somebody just did.
Okay, perfect. Okay, once she gets her camera on, Councilor Zelensky has joined the meeting. Okay, are we all set?
Yep.
Okay, we've done roll call. I'll go ahead and just jump right in then since we have one agenda item. It is consideration of ordinance 2023-06, series of 2023, and ordinance of the city of Glenwood Springs initiated by a citizen petition pursuant to Glenwood Springs Municipal Charter, Article 5, to amend Glenwood Springs Municipal Code sections 050, 080, 080, and 050, 090, 090, expanding retail and medical marijuana sales hours from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. This will be a first reading. I'm going to go ahead and let Councilor Godis jump right in.
I move we pass.
Stop. It's a public hearing, Jonathan.
Yep. So
First reading. So
okay,
just to cue it up, Madam Mayor, at the last meeting, Councilor Geddes moved, and I believe it passed 5-2 to place this back on a special meeting agenda. If I remember correctly, Councilor Geddes, the motion was to revisit this in August to see if it was working, and if not, potentially place it on the November ballot rather than to have a special election in June of this year.
Yeah, I was to accept the petition as submitted. And the second part of that motion was that the second meeting in August to evaluate the impacts and at that point make a decision.
Right. And just so to remind council, underneath Charter 5.4, you have two options with regard to this ordinance. You can pass it as presented. You cannot amend on a citizen petition. You can make changes 6 months after adoption. And to answer, I'll get to your question, Jonathan, that you emailed me as well. this would become effective if passed on second reading at the next regular council meeting, 10 days after publication. So we usually figure about 2 weeks after, by the time it gets into the paper, gets published, and the 10 days after publication. So 2 weeks after our May 4th meeting. So essentially at the May, whatever that is, 18th meeting, it would be effective.
Okay. So with that in mind, and before I jump into public comment, are there any counselor questions?
Not at this time.
Counselor Schachter.
Yeah, I think it's been covered, but it went by so quickly. I want a clarification. I think Carl clarified the first part for me, that there was a caveat that the majority of council could decide in August if there was enough reason to put it on the ballot in November. Is that correct? Is that what everybody?
That was the motion.
And my next question to you would be directed to Carl, just clarification. I think you mentioned, but should that be put on the November ballot, and it would be then a rollback of the hours, or
Right.
listing that, and that can be done, and that can be effective.
Yeah,
almost
it would have been more than 6 months after the effective date of that rollback of that referred question would be more than 6 months after your adoption of this. So it would totally be fine.
And it would go into effect shortly thereafter. It doesn't.
It would go into effect, typically
An annual
I draft those so that it goes into effect, if and only if the ballot measure passes.
Right.
And is certified, and that usually with the Unicaba ballots, the overseas ballots, usually takes us about 7 days after the election before Ryan can certify those results.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Okay, so now I have a question, and I don't know the protocol for ask it there. Raise a hand.
Yeah, in future, raise your hand, but
I'll raise my hand. Sorry.
totally works. No, this
Okay.
totally works. You're doing great.
Okay. So if it goes on the November, it would be initiated by council, not by a public petition.
Exactly.
Okay. And then my second question is, do we choose how we poise it, or do we ask them if they want to continue, or do
I
we
think
want-
I think all of that language we would talk about in August.
Okay.
If you guys decided you wanted to. I could frame it a number of different ways depending on council's desires and still make it a clear ballot question, I think.
Got it. Clarity is just my concern on that.
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions from council? Okay, we do have at least one attendee. Mr. Noon, do you want to jump over and speak for a few minutes? I'm going to allow him to talk, and hopefully he can hear us. If you unmute yourself, Bob, you should be able to speak.
Should be able to talk, Bob.
Yeah. He was having some issues earlier. I know he did have a chance to talk to. I spoke to him, and Counselor Schachter spoke to him and answered questions. I think we're going to have to let it go. Okay. Sorry, Bob.
Is it possible to have either you or Counselor Schachter kind of summarize maybe what his concerns were, his position was?
That's what I was going to do. Unless, Sumner, do you want to do it? You want to summarize Bob's concerns?
1 second. Sorry. I perhaps didn't talk with him in depth about his concerns. I told him the likely questions I would just confirm.
Mhm.
And I think he sounded like he was willing to wait till August. He was speaking secondhand for some neighbors, so they're willing to wait until August and see what develops, and perhaps come to us with information that would guide our decision.
Okay. And then I'll jump in as well and say that, one of the biggest concerns that he expressed today was the proximity to residential units. where so many of the marijuana dispensaries are in more commercial zone areas. There are a few that are adjacent to residential areas, and part of our discussion potentially in August would be amending the ordinance to have certain distances where that extended hour timeframe may not apply if they're really close to residential units. And that was just an idea he threw out, but that's, I think between the two of us, that summarizes where he was with it. Okay, Councilor Godus.
Yeah, thanks. I think when we're evaluating it, so just to be clear, the motion was simply that we'll reevaluate in August and consider whether it goes on the ballot in November. But I think if we're going to have data brought in by anecdotal data brought in by neighbors, we should also ask our police and EMS, our fire district, to also maybe not like create a whole separate spreadsheet on calls, but if there is additional calls from police or EMS, that's some concrete data that we could use to help make our decision. So if there is a way that our police and fire can just kind of have an eye out so that we have more data to make our decision with in August, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, and that may be something after the motion is made and we have a discussion, maybe we could all, if anybody had anything, they could add in things that they would like to be happening during this time. So do you want to, is that an official motion? Are you looking for a second?
So Carl,
Yeah.
the motion I made previous, do I have to restate it because it's first reading? Or
no, I mean, I think for clarity, maybe take it in two motions or a motion and direction to staff. The motion would simply be to approve ordinance 2023-6 as presented, because that's what the charter requires. And let's do that. And then let's talk about whether we want a motion with direction or on what to bring back in August. Or if you guys feel like, if we as staff feel like we have enough clarity in what kind of data you're going to need just on the conversation.
Okay, great. So I'll make that first motion for 2023-06, series 2023, extending hours from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. as presented by the petitioner.
Second.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just say all those in support of that, go ahead and just raise your hand so that I can see it. Thank you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Thank you. 5.
I'm like, I didn't know which hand to raise.
No, totally.
And just for the record, Ingrid, it's probably so that Ryan has it in the record, just to note that was all of the council members, with the exception of the mayor, voted affirmatively.
Okay. And then all those, opposed would just be me. Thank you.
With that, Madam Mayor, I guess I would ask, along with sort of data, and I think Jonathan or Councilor Geddes, to that point, I think we always maintain that kind of data and can parse it out by address. So I think that's relatively straightforward for us to do from a EMS and public safety standpoint. And certainly that would be, I think, part of the conversation in August, along with sort of the neighborhood information, as well as probably any complaints we receive that come in through ComDev or through code enforcement regarding those addresses or activities.
Councilor Godus, is that sufficient? Does that answer your question, or do you feel like there needs to be further?
No, I think that would be great. I mean, if Sumner has his hand up, but if there's something, I'd just make a motion to put it back on the second meeting of August for us to find out the data and consider how it's worked for 5 months.
Okay. That's perfect. That's a second. Okay, so all of those in favor, we'll just go ahead and raise your hands again. And I'll say that Councilor Schachter, Councilor Godus, Mayor Wusso, Mayor Pro Tem Dem, and Councilor Zelinski, Councilor Weimer. It is unanimous.
I still have a question.
Okay, go ahead and jump in, Councilor Schachter.
Well, I think Carl said what else to consider. It's come up, the mayor mentioned it. I mentioned it last meeting. If possible, at that meeting, be prepared to tell us if and how a differential residential setback were allowed, what the parameters might be in terms of various locations. That would be helpful based on what happens at that meeting.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor Godus.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, great. Are you guys all feeling good about that? Any additional items, any additional questions? We good to go? Okay, then I will look for a motion to adjourn this special meeting.
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Carl, what's funny about that? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I just love that they were in tandem. Like it was a barbershop quartet.
Okay, excellent. I think it's a unanimous vote to adjourn. Thank you all so much for making time to
Thank
do
you.
this. Have a
Bye.
great day.
Bye. Thank you.